Good morning, dear friends. Good evening, good afternoon, good day, whichever way you're watching this. Welcome. Here we are for another study of the book Calmness by the Spirit Emmanuel through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier. What an honor and a blessing to be with you today. And this message is titled Inner Safety, the sixth message on the edition of this book that I use and I have. And as a reminder, we translate and revise this message at the Spirit Society of Richmond. And in collaboration with Kardec Radio, we are sharing this with you because who does not need calmness in our lives today during this planetary transition, correct? So today, Emmanuel will tell us about many different ways we can assure this inner safety in our lives. So shall we start and see what Emmanuel has to tell us? Message 6 for chapter 6, Inner Safety. Emmanuel says, quote, faced with the emotional impacts of everyday life, you would consider building inner safety so that serenity becomes a constant defensive fort, and you can arguably build such a refuge. Unquote. We take a deep breath in and out this morning and say, faced with the emotional impacts of everyday life, who does not? At the level of evolution we are today on this earth has emotional impacts in our daily lives. We do. We may have. However, he's saying you should consider building an inner safety so that serenity can become this constant defensive fort. And he says you can build such a refuge. So when we have the ability to understand that we have the capacity to build serenity as this defensive fort, then we're less susceptible to the emotional impacts of our everyday life. And how do we do it? How do we build this fort of serenity? He says, begin with the edification of your own peace, observing that we all need to think for ourselves, even though we know we are influenced by the idea of others. Accepting ourselves as part of the immense human family, we will find that our difficulties are no greater than those of others. Unquote for now. He says to begin the edification of our own peace, of our own fort of serenity or calmness in this morning. He says we need to observe that we think for ourselves. You have your thoughts, you have your tendencies, you have your abilities, you have your capabilities. Even though we know we are influenced by the ideas of others. Or sometimes we don't know. We're just going with the flow. We have unconscious ideas coming to our minds all the time from advertisement, influences, our social media feeds, what our friends and families are doing. Those are all things that can influence us. But if I build that fort of serenity, building the inner safety, I'll be able to say, I think for myself, these are my values. And those are the values of others. And then you can be serene. You're not going to be facing these emotional impacts. You're not going to enter a room, and if they're all exhausted, you become exhausted. If they're all angry, you become angry. If they're all anxious, you become anxious. So on and so forth. Right? But we have to accept that we are part of this immense human family on the earth and beyond the universe. We're all connected. And we will say that our difficulties are no greater than those of others. So we are all here together, sailing the same boat with Jesus at the helm. So Jesus is guiding the boat of humanity. But we are part of a family. We are part of an exchange of ideas. We in both realms of life. We've been talking about the spiritual realm. Was talking mostly about the physical realm. But he's gonna elaborate a little bit more on how we are part of this family, but at the same time we can be a unique entity gathering our thoughts and ideas so we can grow together. So he says, integrating the terrestrial community susceptible to adopt numerous mistakes due to the stage of learning we're in, we're all impelled to understand that we're not exempt from making certain mistakes. We're susceptible to the mistakes and we are not exempt from making them. It's beautiful, right? And this is understandable, says Emmanuel, in the manner of the red light, in the common traffic, signs inviting us to stop. In order to move forward in an in a space that lack the risk. So he's making an analogy here that you're part of humanity. You're susceptible to making mistakes due to the stage we're in. And we need to understand that we're not exempt from making the mistakes that we consider not ideal from others. And he's giving us an analogy. When we stop at a stoplight, we're not only following the law, but we are making sure the traffic is moving smoothly and without the risk. So, because if you cross the red light, you're incurring the risk of getting hit and now hurting others. So when we have this moment of stop, breathe, take an inner accounting of how we are, then we can build the fort of serenity and prevent emotional impacts. He will continue, quote, alerted by the imperative to attend to our own path, we will learn that the road of loved ones can be different from ours. Admitting each creature as a passerby was a traveler in the car of their own existence, we will know to watch over our guidelines without interfering in the conduct of others. Sharing everyone's reality, it will be easy for us to recognize that the setbacks that occur, perhaps they also even happen in the march of the beings we love, competing to help them as much as we want to be helped in solving our problems. Unquote. So he's bringing the attention first to the possible emotional setbacks that we have in this reincarnation and how building that fort of serenity can help us. And he says you can arguably build such a fort, such a refuge where you are not as influenced by others. And he's saying people may make mistakes, we may make mistakes, we're an exempt from mistakes based on the level we are. We should have an ability to distinguish when it's time to stop and not move forward with the errors. If you are in a group and they're going in a direction that is not aligned with God's laws, we need to be able to say stop. So then our next move is with less risk. Now he's making an analogy of you and I as passengers, passerbys, or travelers in this car of our own existence. So the car that we travel with has to follow certain rules. And it says, let's watch over our guidelines without interfering in the conduct of others. So when we are in this lifetime, you have your reincarnatory plan. I have my reincarnatory plan. And it's up to me, it's up to you to fulfill the reincarnatory plan without interfering negatively in the conduct of others. So, of course, we need to stop folks who are hurting others. We need to stop and help those who are thinking about hurting themselves. We need to guide and help our loved ones to understand that they are more than the physical, that they're immortal beings living on this earth, that everything has a reason, the mortality of the soul and reincarnation patterns. So we need to infuse those teachings into people's lives so they have hope that everything shall pass. So they don't get also emotionally contaminated, if you will, and having those setbacks on wherever they are in their life. We need to help others. We need to help. But sometimes we can't interfere with their conduct. We can inform, we can mediate the risks. And if the risks of being around them are that you are going to incur even more errors, we need to stop and move in a different direction. He says, reflect on this, and you will conclude that this or that traveler in the world needs to protect the vehicle that concerns them so as not to cause disasters that threaten others and yourself. So we need to be mindful of our own path. There's a hint here towards what Jesus said. You will worry about the speck on your brother's eye, but don't you worry about the blindness on yours. I'm paraphrasing, of course. So when we focus on what am I here to do, where is God putting me to do, that doesn't mean I'm going to help, because maybe our path is, not maybe, our path is to help others. But we need to make sure, but before I criticize, before I see the errors of others, I understand I'm not exempt from mistakes. I'm also a traveler on this car of existence on the planet. And then we need to take care of this vehicle. We need to take care of our physical body, our emotional state, our mental state, so on and so forth, so that we can travel more easily, so we can avoid that my path hurt others. And we have to guide those within our realm and circle of influence so they also don't derail in their fulfillment of the duties of the life, right? Now, the title of this book is Calmness. The beginning of the message, in this message, was titled Inner Safety. And he started talking about serenity forts, this idea of shielding us from this emotional impact by knowing where we stand, by knowing that we are valued, and knowing that God loves us unconditionally. Even if we choose to incur in errors, God still loves us and gives us another opportunity. And this lifetime is that opportunity. Where in the past, we made mistakes. Now we're here to redress them. We ask for opportunities of learning, and the trials are given to us so we can move a step ahead. And will serenity ever prevail on the earth? Yes. All the planets are and us. We are all under the guidance of the law of progress. As much as the earth as a physical planet will transform itself over time, and has. If you look at the evolution of the earth in its 5 billion years within the 15 billion years of the universe, earth has changed a lot over time. That's the physical progress. But there's also an emotional progress and moral progress that we experience. If you look at what we do today versus what we did 2,000 years ago, and how much more kinder, how much more empathetic we are, and how much more aware of our actions and how they affect others, the health of the earth, and the ability we have to help the lower beings, the beings in the other kingdoms of life, the animals and the plants, and so on and so forth. We've made a lot of progress, and progress is incremental. With serenity, we'll live on the earth, and we'll progress, and we'll have serenity within us. Just go to the books of Andrea Luiz, and you're going to see how more serene the mentors of the spiritual aid missions are compared to Andrea Luiz and the other participants. How they can see someone suffering in their lower zones, help them while seeing the potential and seeing them not as the mistake they committed that brought them to the monotheistic mindset that keeps them in the lower zones, and not seeing them only as the mistakes they've made, but also as the child of God that they are. So the mentors have the serenity, the fort. They're able to help without the emotional setback. So we can enter that meeting where everybody is exacerbated and we can be calm and be a calming post where we face difficulties in our households and we can be the voice of reason and we can remove ourselves from preventing ourselves from incurring even more mistakes. And Emmanuel will finish this message by telling us serenity will live with us on earth. So that's a statement. Serenity will live with us on earth when we understand that every sisterly and brotherly creature has his or her own body with dreams, commitments, achievements, and initiatives associated with them. And this will keep us from hasty judgments and undue condemnations, so that we are in full experience of the Golden Rule, whose practice is the heart of happiness, so that we are in the happiness of the heart. And there you have, dear friends, inner safety. What a blessed message by Emmanuel this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whichever way you're watching this on demand. And I hope that today you can think about how can I build the inner fort of serenity, the refuge of calmness and peace in my heart, so that I can be a better instrument in fulfilling God's will for us in this lifetime. I hope that I can see you again, God willing, for another study of the book Calmness by the Spirit Emmanuel through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier. But until then, stay well, stay safe, take care of yourself and others, and I'll see you soon.